Good evening and welcome to the 2021 federal election debate for the riding of St. Catharines. My name is Mishka Balsam and I'm the CEO of the Greater Naga Chamber of Commerce. And on behalf of my board of directors and colleagues, it is my privilege to be hosting this important dialogue. Let me start out by acknowledging that the land on which we gather is the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe and Haudenosaunee people. We recognize and deeply appreciate their historic connection to this place. We also recognize and never take for granted the contributions of Métis, Inuit, and Indigenous people, both in shaping and strengthening the municipality in particular, and our province and country as a whole. With less than 1 week to go, the parties are focusing on key issues as you, the electorate, makes their final voting decision. We extended an invitation to all registered candidates for this riding, and we are pleased to welcome the Liberal Party candidate, Chris Biddle. He is a lawyer who has held the seat for the Liberal Party since 2015. Rebecca Hahn is representing the People's Party of Canada. She is a Niagara College Human Resource Management grad and runs a business with her husband. Tricia McLennan represents the NDP. She serves as Brock University's Intercultural Communications Coordinator and is an author as well. Catherine Rhodes is the Green Party candidate. The McMaster University grad is a business owner and an avid outdoors person. And Christina Waller represents the Conservative Party. She holds degrees from both Wilfrid Laurier and the University of Toronto and is the Executive Director of a global healthcare foundation. Thank you all for joining us this evening. This debate is being recorded and live streamed to our YouTube channel, Greater Naga Chamber of Commerce, and will be available on our website and GNCC.ca as well. If you wish to enable live transcript and you currently are joining us via Zoom, not YouTube, please refer to the button on your Zoom screen for that option. We had in excess of 200 individuals signing up for tonight, some joining us via Zoom, others via YouTube. Many of you have actually taken the time to submit questions in advance of this debate. And in reviewing the important topics that you wanted to see discussed, we felt that it was best for us to actually group them into 6 categories. And those categories are pandemic recovery, equality and affordability, truth and reconciliation, foreign policy, our economy, and climate change. And now it is my great pleasure to hand the debate over to my colleague, Hugo Cheshire, Director of Policy and Government Relations, your moderator for this evening.
Thank you very much, Mishka, and my thanks to our candidates for joining us here tonight, and to our audience for taking the time to hear from our candidates. I want to say how much I appreciate every candidate here for being willing to perform the public service of representing the community of St. Catharines in Parliament. Being a member of Parliament is a difficult job, and standing for the office is not much easier. I hope that by the end of this evening, we will have not just a grasp of where our candidates stand on important policy questions, but of who they are as people and as members of our community. I shall now briefly go over the rules of our debate. Each candidate has been invited to give an opening statement, and those statements will be delivered in the order determined by a random draw in which the candidates participated a short while ago. The order in which questions are answered will cycle in a pattern based on the outcome of the random draw. After we have concluded all the questions we have time for, each candidate will then be invited to deliver a closing statement in reverse order to that of the opening statement. Each candidate will also have 5 opportunities to offer a rebuttal during the debate, which they may request at any time during the course of a particular question. We have asked the candidates not to use these rebuttals to question one another. These are the rules of our debate, and I look forward to an informative and entertaining discussion. Finally, though, these debates are not the last word on anything we discuss tonight, and we encourage everyone to be inquisitive and to ask follow-up questions of any of the candidates whose contact information can be found on the GNCC's candidate tracker. I'm sure that they will be happy to hear from you. Without further ado, I shall now proceed to our first question. As Mishka said, our first topic is the COVID pandemic. And more than 25,000 Canadians, including 425 in Niagara, have now died from COVID-19. And we are entering a 4th wave.
Not to interrupt you, Hugo, do we have opening statements?
I'm sorry. I messed that up. Yep, we do indeed have opening statements. I will go first to Ms. Rhodes for her opening statement. You have 90 seconds.
I forgot to unmute. I'm sorry about that. Thank you, Hugo. I would like to thank the Chamber of Commerce for having me, my colleagues for being here, and the businesses in our community for having each other's backs during this trying time. Outside of a pandemic, the elephant in the room for businesses is always emissions. So I'm going to start there, get into the heavy stuff, and hopefully end on a high note, so bear with me. Business in Canada, and that includes exports and private companies, is heavily reliant on a carbon-biased economy. Emissions are up, and the UN has declared a global climate crisis. I'd like to say business is good, but the truth is we're not making money. You know business is bad when the billionaires are going broke. We've said goodbye to Eaton, Sears, and Zellers, and when big business is squeezed, small businesses aren't far behind. We've seen massive closures. Canadians would rather wait months for shipping or line the pockets of American giants like eBay and Amazon than deal with a lack of tech infrastructure that has made domestic retailers so much less attractive. One day, we'll be able to refer to this as the old times. We'll say back in 2021, we didn't know better. The pay gap was massive, racially and gender biased, politics were divisive, and even the people at the top, the highest income earners, were worried that their own kids and grandkids wouldn't be able to afford a home. I'm 100% behind the Green Party because I believe in bold action, big changes, and a strong commitment to innovation. And yes, believe it or not, I'm an optimist. I hope you'll listen to me tonight when I talk about a commitment to human rights beyond the most basic needs. In a green future, we'll all be living in our dream homes and paying pennies a day to run them because of clean energy grids. I'm an optimist like most business owners, and I believe it's Canada's time to shine. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Rhodes. And I turn the microphone to Mr. Biddle for your opening remarks, sir.
Thank you so much, Hugo, and thank you to the Greater Niagara Chamber of Commerce for hosting the debate tonight, and for everyone tuning in to listen. In 2015, I had the honor of being elected as your Member of Parliament, with a promise to deliver for the people of St. Catharines, fighting for things like the Port Dalhousie Piers. I was fortunate enough that my children, age 5 and 3, had their first walk along the Port Dalhousie Piers thanks to our government's investment. We've seen the first affordable housing units built in St. Catharines since the 1970s, and historic investments in transit and infrastructure. We have a commitment to take real action on the climate crisis and ensure that our seniors have a dignified and healthy retirement. Throughout COVID, we promised we would have your backs, and we did. CERB, wage and business supports, and ensuring that there was enough vaccines for everyone to get vaccinated 2 months ahead of schedule. We're number one in the G20, but we're the only party with a real plan to do better, and I look forward to discussing that. Furthermore, we're the only party with a real plan to finish the fight against COVID-19 and build a better future for tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms. Waller, I now turn to you for your opening remarks.
Thank you, Hugo, and good evening, everyone. And it's an honor to be here today, and thank you to the GNCC for providing us with this platform to discuss our political positions openly and respectfully. Before I get into the heart of the debate, I do want to address what's happened in St. Catharines over the last few days, because I know it's probably on a lot of people's minds. Before you have 5 candidates, and while we disagree on policy, I do believe that all of us want to work the hardest that we can in order to serve Canadians to the best of our ability. The vandalism that occurred at Chris's house and at the mayor's house over the last few days was inexcusable. One of the greatest things about being Canadian is that we're allowed to debate openly, and targeting, harassing people who are serving at their homes is just wrong. I'm running as a Conservative because I can care about our community. I care about universal health care, mental health and addiction, about housing and rental costs, about crime and community safety, about small businesses and their employees, and about protecting the most vulnerable. We have a plan to address all of these issues and more. Aaron O'Toole is a proven leader. He served 12 years in our Air Force. He's a regular guy with a family who cares about making our community the best that it can be. And he has a great plan to do it. I invite you to join us in securing the future of Canada by voting Conservative.
Thank you very much. Ms. McGlennon, your opening remarks, please.
Thank you so much to everyone, and thank you to the GNCC for allowing us to have this debate. On September 20th, you have a choice between the parties that have broken one promise after another, time and time again, or voting for Jagmeet Singh and the NDP, who are fighting for you. On September 20th, you have a better choice. And let me tell you why. Across Niagara, families are worried about jobs, health of our loved ones, the climate crisis, and public services that everyone counts on. The past 18 months have shown that Canadians can confront any challenge, as we're doing in our community with what's been happening. And when we have to, and when we choose to, we can come together. It's also shown us the importance of having NDP in Ottawa fighting for you, holding the government accountable, and making sure that families across St. Catharines are not forced to settle for less. If we want different results, we have to make different choices. What we need now is the courage to act together, and that's exactly what the NDP have to offer to Canadians. We can make life more affordable for everyday people by investing in healthcare. Our platform is now costed, and we are investing heavily in healthcare. And we can invest in housing, pharmacare, and childcare. I ask you for your vote on September 20th. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And finally, I turn to Ms. Hahn for your opening remarks. You have 90 seconds. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Hugo, for that. And thank you for having me here today. So I'm here for one reason and one reason only, and that is because I care about people and I care about the future of this country. These lockdowns have highlighted the blatant disregard for the well-being of Canadians from all levels of government. I couldn't stand by and watch family and friends' lives being ripped apart by lockdowns. I couldn't stand by and watch children's mental health issues spiral out of control. And I couldn't stand watching people lose everything that they have worked on because of a negligent government. So in 2020, I began contacting politicians and questioning the justification for lockdowns. And what I found was there was actually no answers. I was also getting shamed, ridiculed, called names, and ultimately blocked by people like Chris Biddle for simply asking questions. It became blatantly clear that none of them wanted to find answers and none of them were concerned with ending the lockdowns. The only thing this government was concerned about was ensuring obedience and compliance from their constituents. It has become more and more apparent over the past 18 months that politicians do not care about the mental, physical, and emotional health of their constituents. So when I was asked to run for the PPC, the only party standing up against these lockdowns, it was a no-brainer. So I'm not a career politician. I may not know all the answers to these questions, but I have run a successful contracting business with my husband for the past 15 years, and I will apply those skills that I've developed as the Chief Financial Officer and the Human Resource Manager to create and implement policies that will help our riding and our country prosper for generations to come.
Thank you very much to all our candidates. And now we'll proceed on to the questions. I do apologize for jumping the gun. These questions were drawn from our community and they are so good. I just couldn't wait to get into them. But as Mishka said, our first topic is, of course, the pandemic. And our first question is that more than 25,000 Canadians, including 425 in Niagara, have now died from COVID-19, and we are entering a fourth wave of this pandemic. What federal public health measures, such as vaccine passports, vaccine mandates, or travel restrictions, would you support to halt the fourth wave and bring the novel coronavirus under control? And Ms. Rhodes, I'm going to turn to you first, please.
I'm going to keep forgetting to unmute all night, so it's going to give everyone else an advantage because, yeah, I'll cut into my minute that way, right? Nothing like asking the easy questions right out of the gate, too. My party is committed to extending pandemic benefits so that businesses and individuals are able to recover from. I can really talk today. My party is committed to extending COVID benefits to businesses and individuals so that people are able to make the choice to stay home and make the commitment to their own health. We will support the vaccine passports as much as we possibly can. However, I have had some concerns personally, and others in my party have had concerns from residents, which hopefully will be answered here today, where people are worried about being targeted for their identity. A I've already got 10 seconds left, but they are worried about being targeted for their identity, and that these vaccine passports will be overused in order to target people and make their lives more difficult. And I think that's where some of the fear is coming in. I'd better just cut off because I'm going to run out of time. But yeah, there is a lot of fear and a lot of worry on the part of our residents that the vaccine passport is not a good idea, or that some sort of limitation needs to be put on it.
Thank you. I'm now going to turn to Mr. Biddle, please.
Thank you so much, Hugo. Approximately 80% of Niagara residents have stepped up and done their part. They've gotten 2 doses of a COVID-19 vaccine. They've stepped up for their health, their community, and their families. And we need to get that number higher. And every level of government needs to be doing everything they can to ensure we get vaccinated, because that is the path out of not only a public health crisis, but an economic crisis. And I'm surprised that we're the only party that is actually proposing that, or requiring that individuals who get on a plane, a train, or work in a federally regulated workforce need to show proof of vaccines. We know vaccine mandates work. When the provincial government announced their plan, we saw 200,000 new appointments for vaccines. This works, and we need to be doing everything we can to protect our residents. It is the path out of this crisis.
Thank you so much, Mr. Biddle. Ms. Waller, is your turn. The floor is yours. You have 60 seconds.
Thank you, Hugo. I personally am double vaccinated, and I support vaccination, and I encourage everybody out there to get one. But we also have to respect the rights of Canadians to determine their own health choices. I don't believe that mandatory vaccine programs would work. If I thought that showing up at somebody's home and saying you must take this would work, then maybe that's something to consider. But I don't believe a mandatory program would work. And I think it's disappointing that Justin Trudeau is continuously trying to divide Canadians and politicize vaccines and the COVID pandemic for his own personal gain. We're in a pandemic right now, and I think if the Prime Minister was serious about addressing this issue, he wouldn't have gone to an election right now. He would have focused on the pandemic and getting us out of it. We were unprepared when the COVID-19 pandemic hit in March of 2020. The Liberals had shut down our global public intelligence health network, so Canada did not have an adequate warning that the pandemic was coming. And we need to take steps to make sure that this never happens again, and that we are able to address the pandemic needs as a country on our own.
Thank you, Ms. Waller. I now turn to Ms. McLennan for your answer, please.
Thank you so much. When we think back to the early days of this pandemic and how people started hoarding toilet paper, it is a leading indicator of the fact that we're all coming out of a really deep and strong trauma. So I just this week had a conversation with someone that I had weeks ago about their not being sure whether or not they should accept the vaccine. And it has come full circle, and they've decided, based on the evidence they could gather, that they wanted to do that. The NDP supports people. The NDP was there to hold to hold people accountable who are currently in government when they wanted to cut the CERB, and that's exactly what we plan to continue to do, is to help people and hold governments accountable.
Thank you very much for your answer. Ms. Han, you are next, please.
So obviously, probably most of you know, I look at this pandemic very differently. As I addressed with City Council on numerous occasions, I have proof that our hospital is overcycling PCR tests. So when you have an issue with the PCR tests that are being overcycled and being used fraudulently, and none of the council wants to do anything about it, you start to raise some red flags. That said, there's also an issue with the PCR test. According to the CDC's lab report, the PCR test can't actually differentiate between the flu and COVID-19, which is what a lot of us have been saying since the very beginning. Furthermore, with regards to the vaccinations, I am not vaxxed, and I do not plan to get a vaccination. And part of the reason is that, first of all, according to Ontario Public Health statistics, my age group has a 99.9% recovery rate, which is extremely high. And I have been watching public health stats since June. And since the vaccine's been rolling out, the death rate has been going up. So that's why I'm against vaccine passports and pushing vaccines on people.
Okay, thank you. We have 2 rebuttals being offered by our candidates, and I will go to them in the order in which I saw them. So Mr. Biddle, you're up. You have 30 seconds.
Thank you so much, Hugo. And it's disappointing to hear my conservative opponents say vaccine mandates don't work. We've seen it in Ontario working with, as I said, 200,000 new appointments made after a vaccine mandate. Every country that has done it, it's worked. Watching Erin O'Toole suggest he'll convince 90% of Canadians to get the COVID-19 vaccine, he can't even convince 90% of his candidates to get the COVID-19 exam. It is not a plan. The Conservatives do not have a plan to vaccinate Canadians, and only the Liberal Party has a real plan to get us through this crisis.
Thank you. Ms. Rhodes, you are up next with a rebuttal, please.
I would just like to reiterate that the Green Party's concerns are, first of all, that this works by force, not by design. You are forcing people to have vaccination who may or may not want to be vaccinated, or may or may not be able, and that's more the point. There have been no limitations and no answers given as to what any limitations would be. I personally do have a friend who had a very bad reaction to the first half of the vaccine and is worried that she'll be turned into a criminal by this legislation because she's unable, not unwilling, to have the second half.
Hey, thank you. I now see Ms. Waller, you would like to offer a rebuttal as well. Please go ahead.
Yes, Hugo, thank you. With 60 seconds, you can't get everything you'd like in. And I just want to reiterate that Canada's Conservatives understand that we need 2 things to move out of this pandemic. First, we need to make sure that Canada is not caught unprepared again. Second, we need to get our economy moving. And as we navigate out of this pandemic, we need to make sure that we are prepared. So we need to partner with pharmaceutical companies to increase production of critical medicines, focus on restoring domestic vaccine research and manufacturing capacity, and overhaul Canada's national emergency stockpile system to ensure that we have the supplies we need. And then we need to focus on our economy again and get those million jobs back that we lost during the pandemic.
Thank you very much. Ms. McGlennon, I saw you wanted to offer a rebuttal as well, please.
Yes, I just wanted to mention that, in the discussion of the pandemic, it is so much broader than just, to vaccinate or not to vaccinate. People have suffered immensely with respect to mental health, with respect to all of the shocks and experiences that we've had as part of coming in and out of lockdowns. And when we talk about those mandates, we're really just talking about immunization records. This is a public health issue that is being politicized, and we need to do everything we can to work together to make sure everybody is doing what they need to do to make sure they're safe and looked after.
Thank you. And finally, Ms. Hahn would like to offer a rebuttal as well. Go ahead, please.
Yes, just to piggyback off of what Catherine was saying, that's an issue that we need to start talking about that is being ignored by the media and politicians. People are being injured from these vaccinations, okay? I know they're getting censored off social media, which is very concerning because people have a right to know and understand what's going on in the public. I personally have a friend who got the AstraZeneca shot. She has blood clots in her arm. I have another friend who was extremely healthy and fit, who has developed a heart condition. And my niece has 2 friends that are 12 years old that have both developed brain aneurysms since getting vaccinated. So to push these vaccines.
Your time is up at this point. We'll have to move on to our next question. I do apologize. Our next question is also on the subject of the pandemic as well. It is that in the event of a resurgence of the virus and public health restrictions from any level of government, what would you do to support Canadian individuals and businesses? And this time I will turn to Mr. Biddle for his answer, please.
Thank you so much. And I had an opportunity to talk to my neighbor who's at our constituency office, which is Delaterra Bakery. And the owner told me that they wouldn't have gotten through the pandemic without the wage supports, the rent supports, and they employ 34 Niagara residents in downtown St. Catharines. The Prime Minister promised Canadians that we would have their backs, and we have, and we will continue to be there with all of these supports, and even understanding that the tourist sector is still hurting. Though we've recovered almost 95% of the jobs lost during the initial wave of the COVID-19 pandemic, there's a lot more to do, and a Liberal government has been there from the start. With respect to the tourist industry, we're going to be there with more grants and loans available for highly affected sectors. But ultimately, again, the path to getting out of this health crisis and economic crisis is through vaccinations.
Thank you very much. Ms. Waller, I now turn to you, please.
Thank you, Hugo. I touched on some of this earlier, the fact that when the pandemic hit Canada, that we were unprepared. And we are prepared to address this should it continue. We are prepared to prolong the current programs to the end of the year, should the pandemic continue to the end of the year. But as the pandemic changes, so did the needs of businesses and so did the needs of Canadians. And so as Conservatives, we want to make sure that we are addressing the needs as they change. And so as we move forward, we also want to look at changing programs like CEWS and changing it, continuing into our job search plan. We have a job search plan that's meant to get the Canadian economy back up and running and on track. And I'm sorry for that noise, to help small businesses and businesses in our community get people back to work and get our economy up and running again. Right now, we're borrowing $424 million a day, and that is not sustainable as a country. Inflation is the highest it's been in almost 20 years, and it's making everything more expensive for us. Life has become unaffordable in St. Catharines and across Canada, and if we don't start addressing that soon, we're going to be in big trouble.
I do have to cut you off there, unfortunately. Ms. McLennan, your answer, please.
Thank you so much. Trudeau wanted to give unemployed workers just $1,000 per month, but the NDP fought to double it to $2,000 a month. He wanted to give a wage subsidy of just 10%, and we got it to 75%. O'Toole didn't get a single benefit for Canadians during the pandemic, nothing. That's the NDP track record, and that's what we plan to continue to do to support Canadians should we find ourselves back in a lockdown type situation.
Thank you very much. Ms. Hahn, your 60 seconds starts now, please.
So the PPC's plan, of course, is to first and foremost end these unconstitutional lockdowns once and for all. Forcing small businesses to close has been one of the most egregious government overreaches in Canadian history and has been a detriment to this economy. So once we end these lockdowns, we will gradually phase out the CERB to incentivize people to return to work. We'll make sure that kids stay in school so their parents can return to work, and that will enable businesses to meet their staffing requirements. Once we do that, we want to get rid of any unnecessary regulations that are stifling small business and stealing profits from entrepreneurs. We'll phase out subsidies in slow increments and lower the taxes once we get the country's debt down, which of course is not going to happen overnight. It's going to take time to accomplish this after years and years of a reckless spending by the Conservative and the Liberal government. So once we get small businesses back on their feet again, the PPC will start running this country in a fiscally responsible way so Canadians continue to prosper for generations to come.
Thank you. And finally, Ms. Rhodes, the floor is yours, please.
Thank you. The Green Party is the only party that started asking at the beginning of this crisis, if nothing changes, where do we go from here? Let's be honest. Businesses were failing prior to the pandemic due to Canada's archaic tech infrastructure and overpriced telecom rates. We want businesses to succeed in this new economy so that local dollars aren't going to big businesses like Amazon. And not later, not when this pandemic is over, but right now. We're not looking at measures that are going to help you one day, maybe when this pandemic is over. We're definitely looking at measures that are going to help right now. We obviously do plan to extend the COVID benefits and ensure that businesses can continue running through this. But we would also like to create shop local campaigns, create local websites like Amazon that are aggregate sites and allow our residents to shop locally. Lower border fees on business supplies because Canadian businesses are struggling because of the fact that it costs us so much to import. I know this as a business owner. It costs us so much to import things. And generally create a comprehensive recovery plan based on the worst case scenario.
Thank you, Ms. Rhodes. Seeing no rebuttals being offered, I'll move on to our next topic, which is equality and affordability. The median sale price of a home in St. Catharines rose almost 30% in the last year alone, while an adult in the city will wait 16 years for a single-bedroom unit from Niagara Regional Housing. What role would the federal government play in creating more affordable housing under your party's direction? And I go to Ms. Waller, please.
Thank you, Hugo. I think all of us here can agree that we know that the housing prices in Niagara are at an all-time high. At the doors, I hear it from young families who don't think they can afford to live in St. Catharines, from parents who fear that their kids won't be able to stay here and that they won't be able to help raise their grandchildren. The fact is, Canada is not building enough homes to keep up with our growing population. The Liberals had made 6 years of promises to take action on this, and they have not. And that's why Erin O'Toole and our party has come up with a new approach. Under the Canada Recovery Plan, we will make it easier for families to get a mortgage. We will ban foreign investors from buying homes here if they're not planning to move into the building as their primary residence for at least 2 years, incentivize them to invest into rentals. We're going to implement our plan to build 1 million homes during the next 3 years. And also, the government of Canada is the largest real estate owner. And we have 30.
Dude, I think I should just talk over the Conservative candidate the whole time. What do you think? Because she's just virtue signaling the whole time. Stop it.
Thank you, Ms. Waller. I now turn to Ms. McLennan for your answer, please.
Thank you so much. We know that housing is at crisis levels right here in Niagara and across the country. And we see this as a three-part issue. Those who need housing, so we have to include homeless people in this issue, as we've seen the proliferation of homeless people explode. And we also have
Dippers are going down, though. They're going to get crushed in Quebec, so they're a non-factor. The Bloc, however, is a factor, and they only run in one province. This is shitty. We need proportional representation. No one wants to talk about it. Please, one of the candidates, tell us that we have a problem when we elect 35% of the popular vote, elect a majority government with no opposition. Please, someone, please step up, please.
To make sure that everybody who can have somewhere safe to live.
Thank you very much. Ms. Hahn, I turn now to you. You have 60 seconds. The floor is yours.
Okay, so, sorry, I got a little pop-up here. So of course, Economics 101 says when there's a high demand and a low supply, we get higher prices. So that's part of the issue. So we want to actually reduce immigration. Trudeau has an unsustainable immigration policy of bringing 400,000+ immigrants in per year. We're not anti-immigration, we're just anti-mass immigration, especially when we're facing crises like housing crises. So we want to reduce the immigration level down. Also, it's my understanding housing is not typically a federal issue, but what we do have is a province that bogs down developers in so much bureaucracy that it makes home development harder, which is ultimately driving up costs as well. At a municipal regional level, there's even more red tape, zoning issues, and often resistance due to having too many levels of government. So from a federal level, we will support and implement the changes necessary for banking, CMHC, foreign investment, and immigration reform to help support the lower tiers of government in making better policies for housing.
Reeves. Strong.
Sure.
I like the green too. I like the green.
The Green Party sees homelessness as a three-part issue. Obviously, at the one end, we have people who are homeless and extremely underhoused. What we'd like to do about that is we'd like to stop building buildings and fix what we have. In St. Catharines, we have a number of abandoned spaces. We also want to ensure that abandoned spaces are reduced. There are currently 7,000 people on the low-income housing list. Most of those people are not homeless. They are underhoused. We need to create a guaranteed livable income to ensure that those people can stay in their own homes, not be forced to move out. You don't first create a homelessness problem and then fix it by building a bunch of buildings. You help people where they are now. We are the only party talking about middle income people. 60% of renters in this country are between the $30,000 low income cutoff and the $100,000 low income cutoff to buy a house, and those people will probably be renters for the rest of their lives. We have also made a plan that I can't talk about because I only have 10 seconds, but that includes those people as well.
So
thank you very much.
Cute. I mean, that is so genuine, on point because of there's something about authenticity in a human being, and I don't need to play with this fucking very, very odd man is saying. I didn't actually have my mic ready to do this. I'm not prepared. I debated this guy last time. We didn't think he could beat the Dijkstra machine. he surprised everyone. On the last debate, I looked at him and I said, holy shit, you really think you can win this? He said, yeah, my polling says I got this riding. I'm like, holy shit, dude. I don't mind Chris, but he's not a big fan of mine. So, fuck you, Chris. I'll talk over you. Hugo excluded me from the last debate as a none of the above candidate party candidate.
I just wanted to finish my thoughts earlier and the fact that all levels of government need to work together on this. We need to partner with municipalities and not just government. We need to work with the private sector to bring in rental units, bring in new rental units to the market. We also want to look at, for affordable housing, enhance the viability of using community land trusts for affordable housing by creating an incentive for corporations and private landowners to donate property to land trusts for the development of affordable housing. We have a supply and demand issue and we need to address it.
Thank you very much. I also see that Ms. McLennan would like to offer a rebuttal, and so I now turn to her.
Everyone should be pressing the rebuttal. Dude, take every second you can get with these pigs. The GNCC, Mishka Balsam, the head of it, her husband, who runs the Kojiko debates, excluded the PPC from the debates. That's shitty. He's a teacher at Lower Seacourt. He's a good guy. I like Mike Balsam. Oh no, we're going by the federal rules.
And we'll do that by placing a 20% levy on home purchases from investors living outside Canada.
Yeah, who cares?
Thank you. I also see that Ms. Rose would like to offer.
This is not what you signed up for. It's false advertising.
I just wanted to take another minute to talk about, again, that group that has not been covered by the other parties' plans, because the low income cutoff is around $30,000. The lowest price, or the lowest income that we see people buying a house is $100,000. There are a lot of people between that $30,000 and $100,000 mark. What we would do is we would allow for eco retrofits that would make houses cheaper, because you would be able to run them for a cheaper price. We would cap rental prices and cap housing prices. And regarding chronic homelessness, again, homeless people are not born homeless. It comes from somewhere. They lose their homes. They don't just wake up one day homeless.
Unfortunately, I do have to cut you off. We only have.
She doesn't understand the first point, but she's right. You help people retrofit their homes. They save on energy costs. Energy costs are going through the roof. It's going to pay back dividends. I think that's what she was saying. Maybe I'm wrong.
Found that Canadians in 4 out of 5 cities examined were paying more than $10,000 per year for childcare. What is your plan to deliver affordable childcare to working Canadian families? And I turn first to Ms. McLennan, please.
Hugo, you're named after Chavez.
Thank you so much for that. Childcare is such an important issue, and we've seen that magnified during the SHE session. The lack of affordable childcare has just
line of the night
intensified with the situation with the pandemic. And
this girl just hit a home run in my book.
The plan is to continue to work with provinces to implement a $10 a day solution for childcare, to have this across the nation so that nobody should have to worry about childcare. We also know that as a social determinant.
Oh, she was serious? She wasn't mocking? Oh, well, fuck her then.
Reliable childcare will pay dividends for our society, not just right now, but in the future to come.
Just gonna send it. Thank you very much. Next up, we will hear from Ms. Hahn. Please go ahead.
Okay, well, we don't actually have a plan for childcare, but not that I'm aware of anyway. But I would say this, I mean, we are committed to investing in Canadians and making better jobs and higher paying jobs for Canadians. So that will definitely help with making childcare more affordable. And we will do whatever we can to make sure that Canadians are well represented. We have a very Canada first, family first approach in everything that we do. And it's my passion, of course. I have children. So we will work with whatever, and we will look into policies and whatnot to make sure that childcare is definitely affordable for all families.
Thank you. Next, I turn to Ms. Rhodes, please. The floor is yours.
I was having some trouble unmuting. Hugo, we already had a plan. And I know this because I went to school as a single parent. I went to school under childcare subsidy. I was able to get an education because my son had free childcare. And I'm going to play right into Chris's hands here because I know that program was a Liberal program. And that was one of the reasons I voted Liberal at the time, was because I wanted a childcare subsidy to come back. We already had that. The Greens will bring back childcare subsidy. We will also incentivize businesses to include childcare in their programs for their employees so that you don't have to go a ridiculous distance to drop your children off. And the other thing we will recognize is that most people in St. Catharines are shift workers and that they're not going to be served by a program that's just 9 to 5, Monday to Friday. They need options outside of that.
Strong.
Thank you very much.
I like this girl, man. I got a soft spot for the Greens. You know that. But this diddler, Chris did.
That still exists. We do have subsidized daycare.
You know what,
across the country.
Chris? Fuck off. Seriously, you're going to get punished. And I wish I was there to share it with you, the liberal tears. You're going to get punished at the polls. Not, spray snow on your car. This is not what you signed up for. I'm sorry, I'm talking.
For $10 daycare. 8 provinces have signed up. Unfortunately,
I just feel like this guy doesn't need a platform. He's a fucking clown. And there's a hat of asses. Fuck off, Chris.
That's not going to address the labor shortage. That's not going
Chris,
to address...
what have you done in 6 years? Drive us into tyranny and bankruptcy, basically? Come on, Chris. You suck. You slippery lawyer.
Thank you, Hugo. And I know that having reliable childcare is an important building block to allowing every person who wants to join the workforce to be able to and to achieve true gender equality. The federal Liberals have been promising a government-regulated childcare system for nearly 30 years, and they haven't delivered. Now, on the eve of an election that Canada does not want or need, the Liberals are making promises once again. And forgive me if I'm taking that with a bit of a grain of salt. Justin Trudeau and the Liberals have had 6 years to do something on childcare, and they haven't, and Canadians aren't fooled. That's why we need a different approach. Aaron O'Toole and the Conservatives will convert the childcare expense deduction into a tax credit to cover 75% of the cost of childcare. Our plan will make families earning $150,000 or less better off, with the biggest benefit to families earning less than $50,000. Conservatives will put parents back in the driver's seat, like Catherine had mentioned. Not always does a 9 to 5 childcare spot work for most parents. Our plan is flexible and it's reliable.
Thank you. I see that Mr. Biddle would like to offer a rebuttal. Please go ahead.
Thank you so much. And I'd like to correct the record a little bit. It was the Stephen Harper government that canceled the deal that childcare with $10 daycare across the country in 2006. It's the same thing Aaron O'Toole is bringing to the table right now. And though a tax credit scheme is great and will help certain families, probably those earning the most, that's not going to create any spaces. That's not going to help middle-class families who need to get...
Seriously. Did I just hear that right? I gotta have a break here and there.
Just gonna send it!
Stephen Harper. Are we... We're not talking about Stephen Harper? Hey, Chris. You're going down next Monday at the ballot box.
Get their families into work, and it's not going to address the labor crisis that we're facing. We need to get everyone into the workforce and help everyone we can, and $20 billion in cuts isn't going to help that.
Thank you. Ms. McGlennon would also like to offer a rebuttal. Please go ahead.
I have to agree with Chris on that. Canadian.
Yeah, your party agreed with Chris's government for the last 6 years, along with the Bloc Québécois, who's elected locally only in one province, doesn't run outside of Quebec. They're the opposition half the time to extort the government in a minority situation. Well done, NDP.
Everybody has access to. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up to offer a rebuttal is Ms. Hahn. Go ahead, please.
Yes, I just wanted to point out too, with the childcare, these lockdowns obviously further exacerbate there's already an issue with the childcare. So when you close the schools down and then we expect nurses and PSWs to keep working, it creates a massive issue with childcare. So again, ending these lockdowns once and for all will definitely alleviate some of those issues as well.
Thank you. And Ms. Waller would also like to offer a rebuttal, so I turn to her. Your 30 seconds begins now.
Thank you. Our plan isn't to cut, but it is to change the promises that the Liberals had made with $20 billion. So I do.
This is a parachute candidate that should be better at this because she did it before. She did it last election, and she's stiff as.
Our economy has been hurt, and we need to open it back up again, get people
something
back
that's
to the workforce,
stiff.
and our plan will do that immediately.
Oh, and she sucks. Oh, sorry, I'm blowing. I hope you're not listening to this. Hugo Chavez
and we have recently
on
seen
headphones because I'm probably blowing you up. I'm not doing a good job on the board today, but
Hugo
Chavez is asking the next question, which is irrelevant usually.
People have faced and continue
because you just spin it back to whatever you want.
Yes, so it's absolutely atrocious what the Indigenous people have endured. One of the big things, it's certainly not going to make up for, the catastrophic things that have happened to them, but we are dedicated to getting clean drinking water to every single Indigenous community. It's absolutely abhorrent that there are, I think, approximately 61 communities that still don't have clean drinking water. In order for anybody to get on their feet and do well for themselves, they need to have access to that basic need. And so our plan is to definitely get them the clean drinking water. And we also want to do a sort of dive into what is going on, where the money is going, because there is a lot of money going to Indigenous communities, but there's very little to show for it. So we want to dive into that, and we want to see if there's any corruption, and we want to get rid of it.
Thank you. Ms. Rhodes, I turn now to you for your answer, please.
I would first like to thank you for saying that these communities continue to face these problems. So often they're being treated as historical, and they're not historical issues. They're happening and continue to happen now. Obviously, our party would first implement all of the recommendations of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, and we would ensure Indigenous-led and autonomous conversation. We would bring Indigenous people into Parliament to speak for themselves. We would end all of the boil water advisories. Now, I do know that a number of the boil water advisories have been ended, and they've been ended very quickly during an election period, which raises the question why so many of these communities went years without clean water and were unable to access it at that time. And we would focus on Indigenous specific housing and also education that is sensitive to Indigenous issues on both ends. So not only in Indigenous communities, but also in communities outside of the Indigenous community, to teach our students not only Indigenous history, but also the future of the various nations.
Thank you. Mr. Biddle, you are next to answer. The floor is yours. Thank
you so much, Hugo. And the images we saw and the stories we've heard with respect to...
Oh, fuck this guy. Seriously, virtue signal. Surprisingly, the Conservatives are doing a lot of VSing tonight. I might even give one to Reeves when she was talking about the Indigenous, but I think she was making a valid point. So it's not really VS if you're making a valid point. VS is just, I can't let this guy speak.
291 boil water advisories.
No, dude, you see how.
They are all completed, underway, and funded. We are going to get this job done.
Now? Is it done now?
To slow down.
No.
We'll finish the job.
Fuck off. You know what? You've had 6 years to finish the job, dribbler. Chris Biddle.
Canadians need to listen, learn, and actively participate in the process of reconciliation.
Dribbler.
And do the hard work of tackling issues that will improve the lives of Indigenous peoples across Canada. Like many Canadians, I was shocked and saddened by the discovery of the unmarked graves of the children at a number of residential school lands. And while we knew they were there, and we now know there are still thousands of missing children that will never come home, finding the bodies and the unmarked graves.
I just want someone to talk to me. I want someone to understand what I'm going through. I want someone to promise and show me a better way to do things. And every answer to every question, if I was a PPC candidate, and I'm sure not, would be lack of accountability in politics. If you elect politicians with a majority government of 35% of the popular vote, you will have no accountability. When you have weak opposition, proportional representation, electoral reform, no one, and I mean no one, is talking about it. Spend 30 seconds on it. Anyone, please. The NDP supports it. Not.
I'm afraid we can't hear you.
Oh, you can hear me, all right. I'll answer the questions. Everything. Electoral reform, proportional representation. Every answer to every question is the root cause of the lack of accountability by politicians. They're on the take. Make them accountable. Hey, if Maxime Bernier gets 15% of the popular vote, and I'm predicting he will, he should get 15% of the seats in the House, not one seat, because he got elected in his riding. You never know, man. The purple wave is coming. Have hope. Vote PPC.
Ending the discrimination and underfunding of Indigenous children's services, and making sure that there is truth, accountability, and justice. And that includes the 94 calls to action.
Shit. Yeah, blah, 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 blah. NDP doesn't have a shot. You know what? The PPC's got a better shot than the NDP does in this town this time around. Believe it.
You have 30 seconds.
This girl's strong, man. I like her.
I would just like to state that I have heard COVID-19 blamed for the infrastructure issues and the boil water advisories quite a bit. COVID has been going on. We've been in lockdown for 18 months, but the boil water advisories have been going on in these communities, in some cases for more than 3 years. And in addition to that, there aren't many governments that are going to stop the Trans Mountain Pipeline, which is a case of environmental racism, which I know that my colleague Tricia did bring up in the last debate. And it is a serious issue that we are environmentally attacking these regions.
I do apologize. But we'll have to move on to the next question now. Now we turn to matters of foreign policy. First, I would like to ask...
This is Hugo Chavez. He's a socialist. He's a commie-loving... Oh, Graham?
And I'm going to turn first to Ms. Rowley.
I was having a bit of trouble unmuting. Canada is currently behind. We are behind the rest of the G7 in terms of foreign trade because
integrity,
we have not come into the future.
What is it?
Our
what do you call
genuineness? Saw Canada as a supply chain economy, and that's the problem. We are currently using up. We're currently using up our natural resources. If Canada wants to be competitive on a global scale, we need to focus on technology. We need to focus on research and development and putting that money into private firms, because currently a lot of our research and development is purely academic, and we do have products and minds and people who are capable of making this stuff going over the border, and so we're not seeing the returns. And I think what needs to happen is that we need to start seeing the returns from what we're already doing, what we're already making, the research and development, the things that we've already created. We need to start seeing the income from that. It shouldn't be going over the border or to other companies.
She doesn't understand our policy that well, but that's okay. She presents well, and that's important.
Niagara, as a border community, we know the importance of trade. Our government has been active on this file from the start, whether it was the Trans-Pacific Partnership or renegotiating NAFTA with Donald Trump, who was isolationist, opposed to trade.
You're bringing Trump into it now.
We were able to secure a deal, even while Aaron O'Toole was telling us we should take any deal that was open to us. We fought hard for Canadian businesses, for Canadian industries like steel and aluminum, like ASW in Welland.
Like a rusty crowbar.
But we also can't just be free trade, it needs to be fair trade, which is why we've included labor and environmental protocols in our trade agreements, so that Canadians can be assured
fair trade's always been a Green Party platform for a long time. Shut up, Diddle. Biddle, sorry. I can't call him the right name. Chris Biddle. Shut up, Biddle.
Thank you, Hugo. Canada's conservatives
thank you,
understand the
Hugo.
power of trade to create jobs and strengthen our country.
You know what? Don't read to me. I don't need you to read to me, Christina Whaler. You know, I don't usually refer to women in terms of, I forget it. Whaler. She's I'm not voting for someone that reads everything. This is your second election in the same riding within 2 years, and you suck. Who's voting for this clown? The old Progressive Conservative Party is now the Conservative Party, and they suck. The CPC sucks. Do not strategically vote for these clowns. They're idiots.
Ms. McLennan,
just like Hugo Chavez.
Thank you so much. Canada has a meaningful role to play on the world stage. Unfortunately, under the current leadership, Canada lost a seat on the UN Security Council, sent weapons to a repressive regime, and stood by while Trump tore families apart at the border. Real leaders show up when it's hard and not only when it's easy. Canada won't be hypocrites on climate change, only just talking the talk. We will work for fair trade, not bad trade deals that serve only corporate interests instead of workers. These are some of the actions that we'll take with an NDP government to ensure that Canada's role in trade makes us proud again.
Okay, this might be the best performance of the debate today, other than this.
So I'm going to actually speak on the oil industry, because that is an industry that I know we do take in about $13 billion of oil from other countries. And I think that it's important that we keep a lot of our money into our own economy and further advance our own economy. So I think that, you know, the oil industry has brought in much prosperity to Canadians, and we want to continue with that. The global demand for oil is expected to keep rising, and we're able to fulfill that demand. So I think we need to keep less of that money and getting it from other countries, especially when some of the countries that we get our oil from are human rights abusers. They're dirty producers of oil, and again, they're feeding our economy, not our own. So we want to keep a lot of the industry that can be made in Canada stay in Canada.
And cancel all the subsidies for R&D to the biggest, fattest corporations in the world. Yes.
Greens are committed to a just recovery. You do not create industries by killing the workers. You cannot continue to sell oil because it is simply not renewable. Canada is in absolutely the wrong business. You talk about oil being a $13 billion industry. Clean technology is a $2.5 trillion industry that Canada is not in. There are a number of industries that Canada is not investing in. When I talk about fashion companies closing, I mean it. That is billions of dollars that are just walking out the door because we do not support the fashion industry, which I'm in. So of course I'm going to talk about it. And also, in addition to that, there are a number of
this girl's strong,
just a number
man.
of industries that we're not in. Green technologies,
strong
clean
points,
technology.
old
Please
talking points, but
contact
still
me here.
strong. And subsidies, all of them, corporate welfare, end them. And proportional representation. Make your government responsible and accountable for every single vote. If you vote Green Party and they'll probably get a vote. They won't break 3% this time. PPC is going to scoop a big portion. They're going to go 10, 15% guaranteed. They'll probably elect Max. Maybe some others. You never know. But Chris Biddle is not, he has not been a good representative. He led with the peers, eh? You got to give him the peers. So, wow, the peers. Wow, the peers.
2014, but Canadians expect when crises emerge around the world, Canada steps up. Like we did in Syria during 2015. We said we would take 50,000 refugees, and we did. During the Folk Arts Multicultural Festival, when it's able to run, I'm proud that we have a new open house, and that's the Syrian open house. And we'll once again step up to accept 20,000 Afghan refugees, those who helped us when the Canadian soldiers were there, and those from vulnerable groups like women, judges, journalists, and members of the LGBT community. Canadians expect us to step up. We've done it before, and we'll do it again.
Thank you. Ms. Waller, your answer, please.
Thank you, Hugo. I think Chris is right in one thing. Canadians do expect us to step up, and they expected us to step up when the crisis was unfolding in Afghanistan. We all watched in horror as the humanitarian crisis unfolded, and instead of addressing it like Canadians should and do, the Prime Minister decided to go to an unnecessary election. I personally work in humanitarian aid and providing international humanitarian aid to underserved communities. And I can tell you that anytime I'm on a mission around the world, over time and time again, I hear how well respected Canada is on the world stage when different NGOs and different groups work together with government to provide aid to these serious situations. I'm confident that under an Aaron O'Toole government, we will have our voice and our integrity restored on the world stage.
Thank you. Ms. McLennan, I now turn to you. Your 60 seconds starts now.
Thank you so much. The NDP has always held human rights at the core of everything we do and how we show up in the world. With all of the various tragedies that are happening across the world, the NDP, an NDP government would show up in the same way, supporting our allies and supporting the people who need help as best as we can. And that's something that we've always been committed to.
Is Biddle really, you know what, let's say, hey, Biddle, can we take care of our own citizens first without sounding like a bigot? Like, you're going to what? How many people are you bringing in? What? No. We got some crises in Canada.
So I just wanted to point out, I think it's really unfortunate that Trudeau really should have started pulling people out of Afghanistan when he knew Biden was going to be doing that. I think that's very unfortunate. And I think that if he would have acted quicker and sooner, we wouldn't be in as horrible of a situation as we are.
Boom.
Thank you. And finally, Ms. Rhodes, go ahead, please.
I'm going to take a few seconds at the beginning of my statement to just thank my colleagues for all of your work on these issues, and not just my colleagues here, but my colleagues in the Green Party, obviously.
This is very wise.
A lot of the humanitarian aid work that they've done and
a little virtue signaling
provided.
But
before
wise.
I go on, regarding Afghanistan, I agree. We knew about it and we should have been able to get more people out. I think the first thing we need to do is find out exactly how many Canadians are on the ground, and then to maintain our contact with aid agencies and people who are currently on the ground and have stayed in Afghanistan through this crisis. And that applies to every crisis. The Green Party is a humanitarian party. We do believe in our peacekeeping role, not a war-making role, and that is what we will continue to be. When people see a Canadian uniform, we want them to feel safe, to continue to feel safe, and to feel like that's someone who's there to support them.
Thank you.
This is how you say that, Green Party. The Green Party supports all life, well, except the fetus.
Federal public debt. What are your plans to return to fiscal balance, and what time frame do you anticipate that happening in? Ms. Waller, I turn to you first, please. The floor is yours.
Read. Somebody call the candidate out that will not stop reading. Point to it. Reeves, please call her out for reading.
Dollars. Now, spending to protect Canadians.
She should know better.
The right thing
this
to
is
do,
her second election.
But we
as the appointed, listen, I joined the Conservative Party of Canada to vote for my local guy that was supposed to run, and this woman got parachuted in by the party. My guy that I joined the party to vote for got blocked. I'm actually a member of 2 federal parties now, and at least one of those parties has a constitution that prohibits that. So I'm hoping they will expel me soon. But fuck the CPC is all I got to say. The NDP's showing well. Right now I got Reeves in a far lead with the Greens number 2 in debate performance.
Most importance. And holistically, we know that so many of the issues that we're facing as Canadians are interconnected. Our plan, the NDP plan, which has recently been costed, will collect 166 billion in revenues to contribute to the economy by making sure that the wealthiest among us pay their fair share. We will invest in green economic recovery because, again, we can't separate the economy from what is happening in the environment. So we are the party that has a plan to make sure that we
understand this. She's just doing a better job of tricking you, right? Because you know she's reading. You can see her reading it. But she doesn't look like she's reading. And optics are important, man. This is politics. It's acting. It's all about optics. She's doing a good job, even though her message sucks balls.
Ms. Hahn, I'll now turn to you for your answer to this question. Go ahead, please.
Okay, so yeah, first we want to phase out the COVID spending programs as we open up the economy. We want to start phasing those out in order to balance the budget. We want to get rid of the deficit by the end of the first mandate through spending cuts such as $5 to $10 billion in corporate welfare, $5 billion in foreign development aid, and we want to defund the CBC, which will free up about $1 billion. As Christina mentioned, there's, approximately a $1 trillion debt and a $350 million deficit. So we want to be very strategic with our foreign aid. We want to basically focus our efforts more on economic crisis, mental health crisis, and homelessness crises in these other countries. And we basically want to use, there's the analogy of when you're on the airplane and you put the oxygen mask on. So they always tell you to put the oxygen mask on yourself before you help somebody else do it. So we want to just make sure that our country is taken care of first.
Wow, Reeves. I did not expect this from Reeves tonight. This is number 2 right here. She's doing a decent job.
Yes, the question was,
Good. I remember. Never mind.
She's so herself.
I think
what do you call that? Genuine.
You
gotta love that in politics, man. That's why she'll never
win.
Last
time that the budget was balanced from being in such a severe deficit was under Jean Chrétien. And what did he do? He did the work. He rolled up his sleeves and he was realistic about what can and cannot be done. Right now, we're in the wrong industries. We're doing all of the wrong things, and we're sticking to these old fogey ideas. I apologize for using that colloquialism, but we're sticking to very old-fashioned ideas and old-fashioned businesses that aren't working then and aren't working there. Now, prior to the pandemic, we weren't making money. We were losing money. Prior to the pandemic, we were already in debt. And who was making money during this? Amazon. Who was making money during this? Big businesses from overseas. And the reason why they were making money is because they changed their business model and they focused on tech infrastructure. They focused on the 75% of people who are shopping online
bored.
Prior to COVID-19.
I'm bored.
And they grew instead.
Okay, so she's still in second place for me.
We need to focus on industries that we have typically been ignoring.
She does not understand what she's talking about, but I still give her credit, and we're going to listen to Chris Biddle go all out.
Thank you so much, Hugo. And in March of 2020, there was a lot of calls from constituents who were worried about losing their home, losing their businesses.
We had
your back. The federal government stepped up. We said we would have your backs, and we did. On one hand, the Conservatives are telling us we would keep all the funding programs that are in place, but just in the previous answer, we've been told that we're spending too much, which shows what the Conservatives view supporting Canadians during the most difficult crisis we face since the Second World War.
I support all that shit. Loot all that shit.
Took on debt so that Canadians
I will eat your ass.
And we still have a strong fiscal track rerecord.
And then they eat their poo-poo.
Only Canada and Germany have AAA credit ratings
across the world. Just gonna send it.
Homeboy's gonna
firepower to deal with this.
I'm getting
crisis.
bored. Stop talking.
We dealt
I'm
with
getting
it.
bored. Stop talking.
We have Canadians' backs.
Haberdashery and flim-flamming.
The she session.
Thank you so much. I am seeing a number of candidates.
The she session.
First to Ms. Waller.
The she session.
I wanted to finish my thought, and frankly, just say that I don't believe that you can actually trust the Liberals on this issue, because in economic good times between 2015 and 2019,
this is not what you signed up for. I get it, but it's gonna get filthy.
Or a recession.
I support all that shit. Loot all that shit.
Fully costed
I will eat your ass
economic
first.
growth and a disciplined approach to new
Oh, what a
spending.
good
We can balance
boy.
Canada's budget within 10 years without making big cuts. Once we get the budget,
To be fair.
that just like in Ontario right now,
The she-7.
Enough haberdashery. I'm getting bored.
Homeboys, good night, like.
I'm also seeing that Ms. McLennan would like to offer a statement in rebuttal. So
Why are you gay?
Thank you so much. Here's a couple of key facts for you. During the pandemic, Canadian
Seriously.
billionaire wealth went up by
Okay, so I got the PPC in a long lead. Rebecca Hahn has done a decent, a way better than decent job for the first time out. A lot of these people are first time out. The Conservative and the Liberals have done this exactly twice or three times before.
seeing no other. Oh, no, sorry, Ms. Hahn would also.
Yeah, Reeves, get in there, Reeves.
Please go ahead.
Sorry about that. It was a last minute thing here. I just wanted to point out when the Liberals say that they have our back, what they mean is they're basically using our tax dollars to keep funding these programs. If they just unlocked the country, if we ended these lockdowns, we wouldn't be in the crisis we are. We would be able to start climbing out of it. So when they tell you, the Liberals say that they have your back, it's really our backs. It's our money. It's money coming out of our pocket and out of our grandchildren's and our children's pockets.
Damn, if that woman doesn't hit rebuttal every time, I'm going to hurt myself. I already have all my shower rods down, and I hit all the razor blades. Hugo Chavez, what's up?
What work must be done to strengthen our capability to manufacture and source our necessary goods? I turn first to Ms.
We're manufacturing necessary goats?
Thank you so much. We need to bring back manufacturing to Canada.
Goals. Goals. I thought you said goats. I thought you said ghost. What's the joke? Oh, I thought you said goat. Can't remember the joke now. It's a good one. NDP sucks. They're not even as far left as they should be. The Green Party's got that. The PPC in a wide lead right now based on this debate. If you're calling it constructively, I think she's made the best points. She's made eye contact. She's been natural. And she's driven the message. And that's all you can ask for. Especially for a first-timer, man. This girl's a first-timer, I think. She's got her notes on the computer, though, so she's staring straight in the camera. You can see her reading, but it looks more natural. Come on, Reeves.
Sure. So I would agree that we definitely need to bring more manufacturing back to Canada. And one of the ways we can do that is cut the red tape. You know, the regulations are stifling businesses. It's stealing profits from entrepreneurs. And that is essentially forcing people to go to other countries to manufacture there. We want to lower the taxes and we want to encourage more manufacturing here by reducing the red tape and all the regulations that are making it difficult for people to earn money here.
Okay, so you can see how difficult this is, right? Okay, so every answer comes back to electoral reform. No more majority governments with minority support. Cut all the subsidies. No more corporate welfare and ammonia as fuel. Dudes, ammonia's exhaust is water vapor. What the fuck are we doing? Did you know you can burn ammonia?
The most land
Fuck are we doing?
Many of the G7 nations, I think all of them. In terms of our population, it is about the size of California, and yet we have land the size of the United States. We clearly have enough space to supply ourselves with food, toilet paper, and any other necessity that we might need. And the reason why we're not doing it is because we've committed to oil and gas instead of committing to sustainable communities, instead of committing to clean tech, green technologies, roof gardens. It's all out there, but Canada hasn't put the money into it. So for Greens, it's been really simple. We've had the same plan for years, a plan that other parties have borrowed from when they found out about climate change.
Good point.
We've had the same plan for years to create a sustainable, eco-friendly lifestyle that allows for our own supply chain essentially to be used, and also for us to supply other countries.
Preach, girl, preach. See, that is a good policy. I like this girl. I like this girl too.
The government of Canada placed a call out to businesses across the country, and Canadian businesses and entrepreneurs stepped up. And we don't have to look too far. Even down the road, Dillon's Distillery switching from making fine gin to making hand sanitizer. Companies switching from clothing to PPE. Automotive manufacturers making ventilators. But the government of Canada stepped up also to ensure that we have a domestic vaccine capability. There are 3 facilities being built. One of them will be able to come online before the end of the year in Montreal, and 2 others in the Greater Toronto area that will be capable
Biddle dribbles his diddle down the middle. He's going to get punished. Can you imagine if Christine Whaler, whatever the fuck her name is, gets elected because this putz can't defend his own incumbency?
And that's through vaccinations. And we need to ensure we have
vote PPC, baby.
Thank you. Ms. Waller, the final answer in this question goes to you. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Hugo. As I said before, we must make sure that we are never unprepared for a pandemic again. We were unprepared.
Shut the fuck up. Shit, seriously, I wish this woman no ill harm, but take those earbuds. First of all, you're such a fucking geek with those earbuds in, and you sound like shit. It doesn't work. Listen.
Of critical medicines and build domestic vaccine capacity here.
Shut up. Shut up. Here, someone said to me the other day, you know when the vaccine passports are going to mean shit 2 years from now? I'm like, why? Because COVID will be gone. I'm like, that's the most hopeful thing I think I've ever heard, and a possibility that I have eliminated. Buy in. Have hope. Here's a Greek god right here, a green god.
I hate to defend an opponent here, but we actually found out we lost the ability to produce vaccines under the previous Trudeau administration, and that was not a conservative government. The conservative government cut the program because the program was experiencing losses, but that was because of the Trudeau government changing it over to a for-profit model. The current government is still using a for-profit model of vaccine production, and it will probably be just as successful as the previous one once we no longer need a massive influx of vaccines artificially created by forcing people to get them.
Boom.
Thank you.
What?
Ms. Hunt, I also see you.
What just happened here?
I just wanted to point out on to Christina's point with the regard to manufacturing in China. I just wanted to speak on behalf of some of my some of my friends who work in the healthcare industry, that they have some major concerns with regard to their personal protective equipment, because most of it is coming from China, where the virus originated. That's a huge concern for a lot of them. And I just wanted to say on behalf of them, like, we need to do something different. We need to get their PPE from Canada.
Hey,
I'm a little biased. I love this woman, but she's doing a really good job. I was going to say above average. That's how I describe myself. She's doing a great job. A great job. I will say that. Unexpectedly great job. Well done, Reebs.
I turn first to Ms. Hahn. Go ahead, please.
So obviously this is something controversial with our party and our platform. So I do want to point out that we do acknowledge that climate does change. In fact, it's constantly changing. But I personally believe in responsibility when it comes to the environment. I'm a bit of a narc about the recycling, and I try to, reduce waste as much as possible. But here's the thing, when you have a government who tells you that we're in a climate crisis, but flies everywhere in private jets, and has a bunch of planes flying overhead at the G7 summit just for fun, we need to wake up and smell the hypocrisy. Also, when we have places like China and India that are mass producers of carbon, and they don't care about the environment, we're essentially going to tax Canadians. Really, we're spinning our wheels for nothing, because if we have mass producers like China and India that are producing CO2 emissions, our little part isn't really going to do much globally.
Tell me that the flashing of her camera, that's not me, I don't think. It could be. Tell me that's not distracting. She worked through that shit. Oh, maybe it's me. I don't think it is.
This election, we've finally started talking about climate change, and I'm glad that we have, but Greens have been talking about climate change for a long time.
You're right, but no, we've been talking about it for a few elections.
By every single party represented here, except the PPC, they're new, but every other party represented here that we were crazy.
Thanks for the love.
I think our position on climate change is so well known. I might just take up this 60 seconds not talking about it, but we do need to listen to the experts. We need to understand the impacts. The UN has finally rung the alarm bell on climate
understand
change.
The impacts. We need to adapt to the inevitable change.
And large-scale oil development. We would end all extraction of fossil fuels. Trans Mountain first.
No, and subsidies.
We would transition workers to a decarbonized economy, and we would invest in the $2.5 trillion clean tech industry and renewable resources, because at the end of the day, you can't just keep digging up the planet.
We tried renewables with the windmills, and it was a fail everywhere. They're not carbon neutral. They're actually carbon.
Thank you so much.
Here comes the dribbler.
You don't have to look too far to see the impacts of climate change with our own eyes. We've had
where? Show me where.
Quality advisories because of forest fires out west.
Forest
but we've taken action since
forest fires are not induced by climate change. Oh my God! I almost said something nasty.
Like putting a price on pollution and putting.
This is a good idea. Price pollution. Price packaging. Price pollution. If you price pollution correctly, a gallon of gas will be about $5 because the pollution that you put into the atmosphere that you don't pay for is accounted for. It's called triple bottom line accounting. It's a Green Party policy. The PPC is probably into it, but Max is going to wait till the next election to break out the good stuff.
Green leader and a leading climate change scientist himself says that our plan is bold and thoughtful. On the other hand, Aaron O'Toole can't even convince his own party that climate change is real, and they voted against such a resolution at their latest policy.
Who cares if climate change is real? Even if it is real, we're not going to be able to stop the changes. If we could stop burning fossil fuel today, and the next 400 years would be completely out of our control, you socially awkward lummox.
Whose greenhouse gas emissions have increased since the signing of the Paris Accord. This is another example, like I said, of the rhetoric that doesn't match their record or results. We accept the reality of climate change, and that's why we will meet our Paris Accord commitments and reduce emissions by 2030.
Read. Somebody call her on the reading, please.
We will fight climate change and protect the environment, but we won't do it on the backs of Canadians. Our plan will set a carbon price starting at $20 per ton, increasing to $50 per ton, as compared to the Liberal plans, which would bring the carbon tax up to $170 per ton. Life is already expensive for Canadians and the people of St. Catharines, and this would make it unbearable. Instead of sending your money to Ottawa from the carbon pricing, we will create a low carbon savings account to help Canadians make greener lifestyle choices while allowing them to decide what works best for them and their family.
Thank you. And for the final answer to this question, I turn to Ms. McLennan. Go ahead, please.
Thank you so much. The NDP has a plan that believes that if you are going to fight this climate crisis, we've gone past just climate change. We are in a climate crisis, and we have to fight it like we actually want to win. So no more, buying a pipeline while saying that we're fighting.
Mark Emery is on my show. He's a PPC candidate in London, I believe, tomorrow, 8 p.m. No one knows that except you.
To let big polluters off the hook. We're going to cut emissions by more than a half and meet the 1.5 degree target that scientists say is necessary to prevent catastrophe. We're going to create hundreds of good paying jobs by investing.
You're going to do nothing because the NDP will never form government. All they will do is prop up corruption. And they will get in bed with anyone. They will prostitute themselves even to the Conservatives if they win a minority, which looks kind of likely.
30 seconds starting now.
Thank you so much. Liberal government has flattened the curve on pollution. We have a plan to reduce our emissions by 40% overall. And Aaron O'Toole's Conservatives are going to take us back.
It looks kind of likely if you don't vote PPC, I should say. It doesn't look likely if you vote with your heart. Vote for the party that stands out from the rest of these establishment goons, like this man right here.
We just can't be trusted.
Thank you.
Fitting. Guess who can't be trusted? A lawyer from St. Catharines to threaten to sue me on the radio because I made fun of your little bitch lapdog, Andy Gill. Hey, Andy, I know you're watching. Say hi to your wife for me.
Who asks, was this election necessary in the middle of a pandemic, and what purpose does it serve? I turn first to Ms. Rhodes, please.
Okay. No.
Fuck, I love
this election
woman.
was not necessary in the midst of a pandemic. It never should have been called.
Wow.
It was put through Parliament, for some reason voted for, and I don't understand why. I know that everyone sitting here today, including Chris Biddle, voted against it. No, it wasn't necessary during a pandemic, particularly since from what we're seeing from the polls, we're just going to end up with the same exact government makeup anyway. No one has grown, no one has shrunk. We might end up with different MPs in office, but at the end of the day, the seats are going to look exactly the same as they did the last time. Yes, it could have waited. Yes, it should have waited.
No, the seats will not look the same. I give you props for that take. It's solid. Here comes the dribbler.
Questions been asked, but I want to tell residents that my last 6 months in Parliament over the past 6 years have been the most toxic that I've ever seen it. Important pieces of legislation.
Oh, victim of the leadership because you're a tyrannical government, Chris Dribbler.
More than 20 years. And addressing systemic discrimination in our justice system.
No systemic discrimination, unless you're talking about systemic discrimination of masking our children and segregating them based on their medical status. You fascist fucking pig, Chris Biddle. Fuck you.
Parties working together, but it's not happening. This toxic environment needs to be changed.
Yeah, it starts with you dribbler.
Our world is
You're
different.
a fucking divisive piece of garbage.
2021. It's time for Canadians to.
Did I mention that this show is partly comedy?
And a mandate to get out
We don't want to go down to his place and spray paint his car. We all know where you live, Chris. You know why we know where you live now? Because you fucking posted it on social media. I could give you the intersection, but everyone knows what it is, Chris. And I bet you if we walk down your driveway today, that spray paint on the back of your car is gone.
On an unnecessary election. Conservatives did help pass legislation when it was needed. And the other parties have made it very clear that the Trudeau Liberals would have had the ability to continue working. And I must say that I do hope some of Catherine's predictions there are wrong, because we need to stand up with Canadians and tell this Prime Minister that this was not okay. And your vote matters on September 20th, and I hope that you make it count. Under Justin Trudeau, we have never been.
Your vote actually doesn't matter because 60% of you, 65% of you are going to vote against the winner. And you'll be unrepresented. That is garbage, and that's why proportional representation is needed. Now, the NDP has proportional representation and electoral reform in their platform. Have they spoken? Has one candidate, even locally, spoken about electoral reform and changing the way we elect a government? Excuse me. It actually benefits the NDP. But they won't talk about it. No one is talking about proportional representation. Basically, if you get 15% of the vote, you get 15% of the seats and the control in the House. Not 35% majority governments with no opposition. That's fucked.
The floor is yours.
Yes, well, I agree with all my colleagues here that, yes, everyone is asking why would he call an election right now? This is just another example of Trudeau speaking out both sides of his mouth. He's telling us that we need to stay home. We're in a pandemic. We're in a crisis, lockdown. And out the other side of his mouth, he is telling people to go out and start campaigning and doing this election. So again, it just makes you question everything that he says and does, because he literally speaks out both sides of his mouth constantly.
Rebecca Hahn is strong.
We have Ms. Whaler, who would like to offer her final rebuttal of this debate.
Rebut the shit out of that thing, man.
Thank you, Hugo. I'm using this rebuttal because I think it's such an important topic. My colleague
I was going to say, is she going to not read?
Calling an election during the pandemic irresponsible. It was irresponsible.
Fuck.
It is irresponsible.
Come on, Christina. I want to like you. I want to give you some props. You're looking up a lot more now. That was better.
Thank you. Seeing no further rebuttals, I will move on. Our next question comes from an audience member who asked that their name not be shared. It is, what will you do to achieve more diversity and inclusion in the city? And what are your plans to combat racism?
My name's Hugo Chavez.
Thank you so much.
Racism that doesn't exist. Who do you know that's racist? Seriously, this guy's going to tell you live in a nation of them.
Is call out racism when I see it, to use my office and to use my position to condemn racism, condemn what we see, condemn Islamophobia, condemn colonialism, and to address policies and move forward. I'm concerned, and we see the division in Canada, but right-wing parties like the Conservatives and PPC playing dog whistle politics to the worst instincts. Aaron O'Toole voting against a motion because it had the word Islamophobia.
I can't use
my. I've spoken to so many people.
I gotta use my mouse stopped working, dude. Where am I going with this? Are you kidding me? Islamophobia. Tell me, at the 20th anniversary of 9/11, do you think that the people of New York should be afraid of the Nation of Islam? I'm just putting it out there. I'm just asking. 3,000 people died. One person died in the January 6th insurrection, air quotes. It was a meandering through the velvet ropes, but whatever, Chris. Okay, virtue signal for us. No, please, continue.
At the mosque and in our community who face Islamophobia on a daily basis. If we have a leader like Aaron O'Toole who can't even acknowledge Islamophobia in the House of Commons, how can we tackle issues like diversity, colonialism, and racism in our country? Thank you.
Thank you. I turn next to Ms. Waller for your response, please.
What a stooge. What a scripted piece of work that guy is.
Ending racism and discrimination is not a political issue. It's
VS,
a human issue.
virtue signal.
We are fortunate to live in a country like Canada, and like my grandparents and thousands of people from all over the world, they came here every year with hopes of a better life for themselves and their families. But too often that sense of opportunity is not equally shared by all Canadians. And I personally believe that there are institutions where systemic racism or discrimination does exist. And honestly, I think when we talk about racism and discrimination, it's just so important to give space and room to those who have lived.
Okay, loser, listen to me. Here's where racism and discrimination exists. Nowhere. Who do you know that thinks their skin color is better than the guys next door? No one. You know where segregation exists? By masking our children and dividing up society based on their medical records, you fascist fucking pigs. Vote PPC.
Tried to do throughout his campaign. This is something that all parties need to be working on together.
Thank you very much. I turn next to Ms. McLennan for your answer. Go ahead, please.
Thank you very much. As a visibly Black woman, it is imperative that we have.
I'd like to lead all my debates with, as a cisgendered 6'4", 225 pound male, heterosexual male, I'd like to say on behalf of my people, fuck off.
And those things are easier to spot and tackle. And the NDP has a plan for that. That's baseline. But we also have to look at systemic racism, and the NDP has a plan.
We can look at systemic racism because it doesn't exist. Show me where it exists. I'll stand against it anytime. You know where systemic racism, segregation exists now? By dividing people up by the V-Pass. Fuck you. September 22nd is my birthday, and it's D-Day, it's V-Day in Canada, and I'm fucking out of here.
Thank you so much. I turn now to Ms. Hahn. Your 60 seconds begins now.
So I have a lot of concerns about the just the constant talk about racism and all those things. I feel like constantly telling BIPOC communities or people that they are hated by their community and that we are essentially a very racist country, I feel like in itself is racist. It's a form of segregation in a sense, like constantly telling them that they're hated and saying, oh, these people are hated here and these people are hated here. That is segregating. I don't believe that we are inherently a racist country. I don't see that in and amongst my peers. I don't see it as a community. I know it exists. Don't get me wrong. I acknowledge it exists. And when there are crimes against people of color, it's disgusting. But the other thing I wanted to bring up is CBC, Trudeau's own broadcasting network, had.
Sorry, I do have to cut you off there over time here. I'm going to turn to Ms. Rhodes for the final answer.
She got the dig in. She got it in. It didn't matter. Here comes the green.
I agree. Telling us we're hated is terrible, and I would enjoy it if people would stop telling me that I'm hated in this community.
You're not hated. We love you. You're fucking beautiful. Look at you. You're doing a great job. We're not. What are you, Greek? What? Italian? What? Native? What? We don't care. We love you anyways. You're doing a good job.
If we were to attack those behaviors at a government level, it is simply not enough to be.
Just me guessing her race is racist. I'm such a misogynistic pig. She's doing a good job. She's representing well. I've been there. I know the Green Party platform. I've stood in this position, I don't know, 7 or 8 times. She's doing a good job. Strong chin.
My name. I feel like I have to hide. People feel like they have to pass because they're terrified of being recognized as ethnic people in this country, and that needs to change from the top down.
That's bullshit. There's no one fucking terrified. Any minority in Canada can tell you they're not terrified to walk the streets of Canada. Shut up. I mean shut up, but I mean shut up.
What accommodations in government service, employment, and freedom of movement and assembly do you support for unvaccinated persons? What will you do to support the charter rights of all Canadians while addressing public health concerns today and in the future?
Hugo,
I turn first
what a
to
democratic
Ms. Waller
question.
for your response, please.
Read.
Thank you, Hugo. I again want to just mention that I am vaccinated and I support vaccination, and
no
I
one
encourage
cares.
everybody to get vaccinated.
No one cares what you
think. But we do have to respect the rights of Canadians to determine their own health
You don't respect
choices.
anyone's
And
rights.
I've spoken to people, and there are
You're liberal
people
light.
in our community that
You support vaccine passes. You're going to leave it up to the provincial governments. Fuck you, Christina Whaler.
Again, if I thought
I don't mean that. I mean, fuck you and your ideas. I think you're probably a solid chick. Just mixed up ideologically. That's okay. This is not a personal attack. I don't know this woman. I don't even dislike this woman. I think she's done a good job. But read. Reebs. Call her on the reebing. Reebing on the reeds.
That everybody in Canada feels confident in their leadership, and rather than trying to divide Canadians, we need to come up with solutions to make sure that we have rapid testing available and screening available and other things.
Thank you. Ms. McLennan, I turn next to you for your answer, please.
Thank you so much. We have to be clear
who cares
that
about the
health and
NDP?
safety
The NDP's got like a snowball's chance in hell winning in this riding. And you might say that about the PPC too, but here's the deal. There's only one federal party right now that has momentum. There's only one. The Liberals certainly don't have it. Well, you could argue the Conservatives do a little bit by virtue of picking up some lost Liberal votes. The only one with real momentum, like wave-like momentum, is Max Bernier and the PPC. And yeah, I'm a little bitter for reasons we won't get into, but I can forgive him for that because I like Max. I like his ideology. I like where he's centered. He's a good man. He's principled. And I voted for him, and it never felt better. I'm telling you.
Yes, well, obviously, I think it's extremely important that we uphold the rights of all Canadians. It is part of our highest law of the land, the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. That should not ever be infringed upon on any condition. So, of course, I think that we need to respect the rights of Canadians. I have lots of friends that are vaccinated. I support them in their decision, and I want to be respected for my decision to not vaccinate. Again, I'll go back to the statistics, the Ontario Public Health statistics that are showing that the COVID deaths are going up as we vaccinate. The death rate is going up. I can't say that enough. That's a huge concern. And every person has the right to question that and make decisions based on those statistics, whether or not they want to be vaccinated.
See how reasonable that is, how well thought out that is, how scientifically based that is. Here comes the Greens.
I talked a bit about vaccination earlier, so I'm not going to repeat it. I think that the same things should be observed in government. And I do think that we need some sort of limitations to this so that people can believe that this is a safe law to implement. However, I do want to bring up the fact that Canadians currently don't have a lot of access to our own health data, and that when you ask your doctor for your health record, for example, you don't have it, which contrasts with the system in places like Japan, where you're carrying around a little pocketbook, or in America, where you get all of your own paperwork. And I think the fact that we're currently over-controlled by government does create fear, and it does create situations where people believe that they're not safe. And also, we need to start focusing on public health and stop treating vaccines as if they're some kind of magical cure, which I know the vaccines are in a lot of cases, but it's not. There are still public health observations that are going to have to be observed. I really walked into that one. We need to stop treating people, adult human beings, as if they're incapable or unable to make their own health decisions.
I do apologize for having
in general.
But I'd go to Mr. Biddle for the final response to this question. Go ahead, please.
Thank you so much, Hugo. And 80% of Niagara residents have stepped up and done their part. And they've gotten vaccinated for themselves, their families, and our community. And the next wave of the vaccine is...
I know this is petty, but I have little tolerance for...
Why are you gay?
People that say, thank you so much. Thank you very much? Okay. Thanks a lot. Thanks. But thank you so much is...
Why are you gay?
Very, very odd.
Their decisions impact me. The federal government needs to stand up for Canadians who've made the decision to get vaccinated and protect themselves. Christine is an aid worker. She knows going abroad, you need proof of vaccinations. Vaccine passports aren't new. Vaccine certifications aren't new. I have to show proof of vaccine for my kids to go to school. This isn't a new thing in our society.
You are signing your political death warrant. I mean that figuratively. You have committed political suicide, Chris Biddle, and the Liberal Party. Goodbye.
Seconds, please go ahead.
So I just wanted to point out the unvaccinated are not the ones that are mostly filling up the ICUs. There are many vaccinated people that are in the ICUs as well. I have two examples. One person has cancer. He's double vaccinated. He is extremely sick in the ICU with COVID-19. His buddy is also in the hospital in the ICU, fully double vaccinated, and is in the ICU and is in an induced coma. And I would like to point out as well that the St. Catharines...
I do have to cut you off. That is 30 seconds. I do apologize. Seeing no further rebuttals on this question, I'm going to proceed.
The fuck out of that shit.
For one last question, and I said I did want to get as many audience questions in as possible. The next question was actually posed by multiple people in different ways. Recent years have seen increases in deaths by overdose in St. Catharines and across the country. What measures would you put in place to end
legalize all drugs, period. Regulate them, tax them, offer the frontline support to get the addicts into treatment, legalize everything, losers.
And it is a very, very devastating crisis that's happening across the country, but is acutely happening here, right here in the Niagara region. The overdose crisis has been fueled by decades of failed drug policy, and it really is time for a new approach. NDP government would, first of all, declare it a public health emergency and would end the criminalization and stigmatization of people who use drugs. We would expunge criminal records for personal possession, simple personal possession, and ensure that we provide low barrier access to a safe supply. We'd
Just
also
say
expand,
it. Legalize drugs. Just say it, NDP.
Treatment,
legalize drugs.
Canada.
Regulate
and
them.
An investigation into the role.
Handle the distribution, the quality control. Nobody's dying of Chinese fentanyl, you fucking losers. Chinese fentanyl is killing our addicts, not opioids. Well, opioids will eventually get you, but Chinese fentanyl is what's getting them.
Ms. Hahn, I turn to you next for your response. Go ahead, please.
So yes, there's definitely an issue with overdoses, which has been extremely exacerbated by the lockdowns. So again, of course, I'm going to go back to, we need to end these lockdowns. A lot of issues too come from a lot of people's support groups were taken away during the pandemic. So you have some people that were able to get off of the drugs, and then their support groups were taken away and they fell right back into their addiction issues. So we need to end these lockdowns. And I personally think that we need to stop looking to big pharma to cure people's mental health issues. There are years and years of trauma in most cases, and we need to invest in therapy and get the people the help they need so they can work through the issues rather than just thinking they're going to pop a pill to fix all their problems, because that only leads to addiction and then homelessness.
And that's what you do when you legalize the hard drugs. I mean, there's really scary drugs, so you can deal with them firsthand when they pick up their subscription.
Contrary to
prescription.
Decriminalization,
fuck, it's late. My head's pounding.
Prison was the only chance that they had to get off drugs. To me, that is a strong statement from a number of people telling me that we clearly need more addiction-specific treatment. Currently, addiction is lumped in with
legalize
mental health,
all drugs.
and I think that's the problem.
At least the Green Party. It's in your platform. Just say it, woman.
Health issue and as an ongoing
legalize all drugs. Regulate and tax them.
We need more addiction-specific treatment workers. We need to stop building buildings and start hiring people that will work with people. And yes, we do need to take a more holistic view to this, because if you continuously tell people that they need drugs to get better, then they're going to...
You know what's an unpopular opinion that's in the Green Party platform? Legalize all drugs. Just say it, woman.
Drug use and drug abuse. Stop criminalizing drugs specifically and start looking at addiction itself.
You might have said it there in the end.
Thank you. I turn next to
Stop
Mr.
criminalizing drugs specifically.
So much.
Okay,
One of the
I'm down.
images that is most burned into my mind, being member of Parliament, was a ride-along I did with St. Catharines Fire Services. And our first call of the night was to vital signs absent call in Montebello Park. And one of our neighbors, member of our community, was lying down unconscious, drug overdose in a washroom at Montebello Park. We need to do more. The criminal justice system has failed in terms of opioid use and drug addiction. We need to be talking about safe supply. I'm proud that I stood up as the member of Parliament and said we need a supervised injection site in St. Catharines, while Conservative politicians were condemning them. We need to address safe supply. We need to work with provinces who have bold plans based on public health, not criminal justice. It hasn't worked. It won't work. We need to be bold as we move forward.
Shut up, Biddle. You know what? If I could go down to the LCBO and pick up an 8-ball of Peruvian flake that wasn't cut with garbage from my local dealers, I should be able to do that. If I want to trip balls on meth for the weekend, I should be able to find a safe supply of it. And when I pick it up, if I look like I've been partying for 3 days and the pharmacist says, hey, dude, you want to help? You want some help getting clean? At least they're not a drug dealer. Are you getting it yet? No, you're not getting it yet. Because you know what? The prohibition of alcohol and marijuana really worked well, didn't it? It's the age-old human psyche. Alter the chemistry of the mind for pleasure. You're not going to ever get away from that. So why not just legalize it, tax it, regulate it, make sure the supply is clean, and no one dies from it. And then if they need help, the people giving it to them are the frontline workers to identify whether or not they have a problem. We're all adults here. Let us party.
Struggling with addiction has the opportunity to recover. As a country, we must recognize that this is a national crisis and address it.
Thank you so much. I do see that Ms. Rhodes and Ms. Han would like to offer rebuttals, but I did say that only 5 would be given to each candidate, and so I'm sorry about I'm not able to indulge those requests, although I'm sure you have many interesting things to say. And on that note as well, we are rapidly running out of time. There are many excellent questions.
It's Hugo Chavez.
I get an opportunity to ask, but I would once again encourage
everyone
who watches tonight to get in touch with the candidates here directly, to pose your questions to them. This is your opportunity to make your views known and to ask for their input on these important questions. I would like now to offer candidates the opportunity to make a closing statement, which, as I said, will be delivered in the reverse order.
You all ready for this?
Why are you gay? Ms. Han, it will be the first. Please go ahead. You have 90 seconds.
Well, thank you everybody for listening tonight. I do, of course, have a lot to learn about the ins and outs of politics, but I will listen to the concerns of my constituents if I'm voted in, and I will use all available resources to ensure my riding is well represented at the federal level. I will do everything in my power to ensure that future generations enjoy the same rights and freedoms as guaranteed by the charter that I have enjoyed up to now. And I would encourage everyone to get out there and vote on September 20th. Please vote with your heart. Vote for somebody that you believe in. Don't worry about voting to get somebody out. You want to get somebody in that you believe in and who you think is going to serve your best interests and the best interests of all Canadians. So that said, please follow me on Facebook or any social media at Rebecca Hahn, PPC. Again, our party is going to stand up for your rights and freedoms. And the only way we're going to make the change and that Canada needs is if we get out and vote and have your voice heard. This is probably the most important election in Canada, so make sure that you get out on the 20th and have your voice heard.
Nice job, Reeves. I'm proud of you, Reeves. That was good work. Here comes the NDP close.
Thank you to all of the folks here on this virtual stage and everyone who's made it possible. Friends, New Democrats are different. Because we are working people. For our whole history, we have fought for better working conditions and standards that lift everyone up. We know that good jobs treat people fairly, can make a real difference to Canadian families, and that setting Canadians up for success in the world, the future benefits us all. New ways of thinking can shape the recovery from the COVID-19 crisis and help make our economy fairer and deliver the results that we want. And we know that business communities play a very important role in this, and we know that businesses contribute to innovation. And those are the kinds of things that we would like to harness and bring forward with our new plan. Jagmeet Singh and the NDP have a record of fighting for you. We have a record of fighting for small business. We have a record of fighting for people. Instead of protecting billion-dollar companies that profited off the pandemic.
You also have a record of propping up the most corrupt minority government ever known to Canada. I hate you, NDP.
On September 20th, I hope you'll consider electing me.
No, we won't, because, well, I already voted. But this is a purple wave, baby. This is not orange. Forget that noise. Read.
Thank you, Hugo. Thank you for the opportunity to be here today.
This is my third election, and I'm still reading off my platform because I'm such a conservative straw man. Fuck the PPC.
Or voting for better.
No, not fuck the PPC. Well, fuck them too, but fuck the CPC.
Pandemic and ride an easy wave to a majority. In fact, Justin Trudeau actually suggested himself that if he doesn't get that majority, he'd be prepared to go to an election again in a matter of months. Our country cannot afford more Trudeau politics. Our lives and businesses depend on it. It's time that we have an advocate for our community that's focused on working constructively and collaboratively. As we emerge from the pandemic, we need a plan for all Canadians that will protect our most vulnerable, that will kickstart our economy, and that will keep our community safe. I'm proud to be running as a Conservative. Our platform is full of fresh and innovative ideas, and I encourage you all to check it out at conservative.ca.
Wrong. No one's voting for you. We're all going purple. Hashtag PPC, vote PPC. It's okay to vote Bernier. Yeah. The CPC's got nothing, man. The PPC is the new reform sweeping the country. Ride the wave, baby.
Thank you very much. I now turn to Mr. Biddle for his final remarks. Please go ahead.
The dribbler. Here we go.
Thank you so much, Hugo, and thank you to the GNCC, everyone listening, and for my opponents in this participating in a debate. We've seen the ugliness of politics coming to the houses of politicians, and I want to thank you for this respectful opportunity to debate. We've been there since day one of the pandemic, and we're going to finish the fight against COVID-19. I know that 80% of Niagara residents have stepped up, gotten both of their shots for themselves, their families, and their loved ones. And we need to keep going. Every level of government needs to step up, including the federal government, and we're the only party. A Liberal government will ensure that everyone who gets on a plane, a train, or works in a federally regulated workforce will be vaccinated. We've seen in Ontario that vaccine certificate programs work. It encourages people to get vaccinated. Now, the Conservatives disagree, but they're offering cuts. Aaron O'Toole has talked about his desire for private sector entering our healthcare system. And on guns, he wants to legalize the most horrific weapons we've seen used in our country that will kill the most amount of people possible in the shortest period.
That's all bullshit, by the way. That is total lies.
On climate, there's been no government in the world that has done more on the climate crisis in the past 6 years than us.
At what expense?
We have a plan to fight climate change, and Conservatives have voted themselves against a resolution that climate change is real. I fought hard for this city to deliver on projects like the Port Piers, affordable housing, and the Canada Summer Games. And I'll work hard to make life more affordable.
The Port
for families,
Piers?
seniors,
Still about the Port Piers.
Thank you.
Fuck you, Biddle.
Thank you. Now for the final statements, I go to Ms. Rhodes. Go ahead, please.
I want to thank everyone for coming out tonight, and I'll try not to take up too much of your time. I know that it's late and I've got kids to put to bed myself. Einstein said that insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different outcome. We've had about 100 years of Liberal or Conservative leadership. We've had the NDP in the House as well. Whatever they were going to do, they've already done. If you're not happy with it, I would encourage you to vote Green. Tonight, we address some very old questions that need some very new and innovative answers. The Green Party is committed to human rights. We are committed to allowing people their dignity. I don't think that we can talk about homeless or Indigenous populations or people of color as a them and us, on a them and us basis. We cannot refer to human beings in that manner, nor treat them
like
as
the vaccinated and the unvaccinated?
We need to look at solutions that consider people's identities and their own opinions and their own autonomy in
let's
their
just
care.
judge them on their merit.
There is no them except the one that we create.
If you're good,
Greens are committed to a
you
just
grow,
recovery that
and you
allows
kick ass.
residents and businesses their
If
dignity,
you're
their rights, and gives them
weak,
the best chance at a
you
beautiful
don't.
future.
Fuck off.
If you want to look more into our policies, I encourage you to look them up at my website, www.catharineroads.com.
Thank you very much.
Oh, sorry, I know I'm at 10 seconds. I'm an optimist. When you check my name on that box, I'll know that you are too. Thank you so much for being here tonight again, and thank you everyone for supporting other businesses and residents through this crisis.
Catherine Rhodes, nicely done, man. I am proud of that girl. I don't know her. She did a nice job, though. Mishka Balsam is going to take us out, no doubt.
Heartfelt thanks to all the candidates for joining us tonight, for putting yourselves in the public eye and being pelted with questions by someone like me for 2 hours. It is not easy, and we do appreciate the sacrifices that you're making, that you're willing to make on behalf of the city of St.
Fuck
Catharines.
you.
For our audience, I also
Teresa
thank you for joining us and taking the
McLennan.
time
Wow.
to be
Sounds pretty
informed
Marxist.
voters. I hope that this debate has
Marxist.
helped you with your decision on the 20th, and of course,
Christina
please
Whaler,
go out
Chris
and vote.
Biddle,
With that, I would like to turn the
Catherine
microphone
Rhodes,
to Mr. Balsam, the CEO of
and
the
Rebecca
GNCC, to
Hahn.
close out the evening.
Vote PPC.
Thank you so very much.
fuck off.
On behalf of all of our
Seriously?
attendees, I can say to you, our panelists, thank you for giving us
Nice
the past
dentures.
2 hours. And I really have appreciated actually that you stayed focused on the policies that are there and the policies, and those are the things that actually the people who've
Mikey,
signed up
what
for
up?
today's webinar and for today's town hall were
Shut up.
interested in. So thank you for conveying
seriously.
that, your policy
Why are you
platform,
gay?
and as well at the same
Seriously.
time for conveying your passion for St. Catharines and for the country we
Fuck.
call home. In addition to that,
You know
I want
what?
to also
Look at
extend
Catherine.
that which had you
Fuck,
had
can
said
I
at the
change my
beginning of
vote?
it, and that is that you actually are willing to put your name forward for public service.
She's adorable.
Representing the community of St. Catharines in Parliament.
And
Being a
I'm
member of
kinda-
Parliament can be rewarding in so many ways.
Kinda
but
partial
also,
to the
as we have seen,
Greens.
it comes with its own hand.
But yeah,
So thank
I
you
think
for
the
being
PPC
moving forward.
smoked that.
Some of the attendees have reached out to us too and wanted to see what
And number 2 was green.
that is based on what the business
I'd put
community
3
members have asked
NDP.
for. And for that, please turn to gncc.ca for
I'd actually have to put fucking Biddle before the conservative because Chris Biddle, he, him, liberal. Seriously. Look at, come on. He, him, liberal. Can you hear me, Chris? You fucking very odd weirdo. Chris Biddle, he, him. Fuck that. He, him. You're married, you have children. He, him. You know what? Fuck you, dribbler.
Sure you know how and where to vote. Thank you for being with us this evening. As we have
Mishka
said
Balsam
beforehand,
is
this
married to
session was
Mike Balsam.
recorded, is
Mike
available
Balsam runs
on our
Kojiko's
YouTube
debate
site,
format.
as well as, will
Mike
be
Balsam,
available
who I got a
on
lot of time
our
for.
website.
I like Mike
So thank
a
you.
lot. Excluded the PPC from their debate. That's fucked. My shit. My mouse died. I'm gonna have to reboot. Well, shit. I'm fucking drunk now. I was doing a shot every time they virtue signaled. And Christina Whaler got me loaded. I'm kidding, but whatever. That's that. That's how the GNCC, which is actually not the Greater Niagara Chamber of Commerce. It's just the St. Catharines Thorold with a different name. Let me see. Let me see if I can do this. I'm going to play some music on the way out. Oh my gosh. My head is pounding. It's been a long day. And I'm going to play some clips. And behind those clips, maybe I'll play a little bit of... I don't know. This busted me up today.
To break it to these pet owners that pets have no feelings and they're not people.
Watch this. He's got a cold. He's got a cold.
What did we just watch?
I'm having some kind of a sinus breakdown.
Ryan's
Was
laughing in the
that a yawn or
background.
wherever
I
the
love
whole
it.
audience was waiting for a sneeze and then he yawned?
It was both. It was like a sneeze that got killed by a yawn. All my instincts in my face are going
I've never
sideways.
seen anything like that.
Thank you, Undead.
That was funny.
Is that it for the B-roll?
Mikey,
Is there's a Pat
my
Dixon
mouse
thing,
isn't
right?
working.
Yeah,
I can't
there's a
scroll
little
through the
interview. We can
remarks
tag it
too
on the
well.
app or we can watch it.
I was watching on Facebook, and I don't know why my well, this is sweet. This is yesterday at the beach. Look at that sunset. My crew would not fucking play with me. Here, let me see if I can switch over to Tucker.
Emails from a cable news show on Fox. What are the chances they were aware that the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff was speaking in your Chinese?
Yeah, okay, so. But, oh shit, did I put him back on? No, he's good. Okay, good. Oh, this is me in the background.
Playing.
Yep.
I need some epic beats.
My
some
DJ
filthy,
wouldn't fucking help me
dirty,
out. He was not
loud
playing the
beats. All I
music.
can
So
hear is
I'm
the
going to play you a
dinging
little bit of music.
of his door and
Fuck, my mouse won't work. It
something
won't
playing
come back. Want Some.
Sub-audio level.
A sub-sonic level, maybe you wanted to say?
This review brought to you by...
This is Want Some by Matt McPherson.
Niagara Dailies, serving the Niagara
community
community for 82 years. Niagara Dailies, home of the stand.
This is Matt McPherson. The song's called Want Some. He's a local fucking wrench monkey, like diesel mechanic. And he fucking makes this music right here. One of my favorites, Want Some, Matt McPherson, who also goes by M Factor. Peace, love, hug your neighbor. And I'm out. I might come back, but for now, I'm out. Somebody told me to turn the voice, my bass down, because my voice is distracting because it's too bassy. Maybe I need to come in like this. keyboard and my mouse have failed. Like, this is not cool. So I gotta come. Oh, can I even do this? I should be able to get over to my playlists. YouTube. Let me see if I can do this. I'm gonna play another album for you. Carries on. Yeah, let's see here. This is it. Workwave. It's about an hour's worth, I think. Let's see if I can get this up here. Oh yeah, here we go. It's pre-recorded. It's on my YouTube channel. Matt McPherson did this, not for me, but he let me use it, and I broadcast it live, just like this. And it is... What up, Calgary? Jason, what up? It's music getting done. Music to get things done. Let's not fucking. I'm okay. Don't worry about it. 6 days left. Vote PPC. Here's Matt McPherson. This is called Workwave. I didn't stop broadcasting. It must be like, what happened? Is there like a break in the music? Some shit? What happened? We gotta... Oh no. Rickwave, that's not the whole... it didn't start from the beginning. For fuck's sakes, matey. We didn't start you from the beginning, lad. We'll start it all over and play that 47 minutes through. That's a horrible accent. My apologies for that. This is the beginning of Workwave. Where is it? Here we go. This is the start of Workwave. We'll play it through. I don't know. It's not what you came for, but it's a local musician. It's actually a local wrench monkey that makes music. Have hope. Pursue your talent. This dude's talented in more ways than one. Matt McPherson, also known as M Factor. Enjoy. That's enough. Good night now.